Hey guys, good morning. Welcome back to Wrangling Rutherfords. I'm Farah, and today I thought I'd take you on a little garden tour. I figured I'd start right here because this is by far my favorite thing in the garden. This massive hydrangea. It just looks gorgeous this time of year. I came over here in the shade so I don't have to squint so bad to talk into the camera. But this hydrangea was here when we bought the house, and I literally have done nothing to it other than watch it just grow and be beautiful. And it is like, it's just my favorite. It's so gorgeous this time of year. And it sits right in front of that window, which is where my kitchen table is, and I drink my coffee, and it's just makes me happy. So I garden here in central South Carolina, zone 8A, and I garden in two different spaces. I have a couple raised beds in my backyard. We actually live in a neighborhood with a HOA, so I can't do a whole lot here, but I do have a big no-dig garden plot that I made at my parents' place. That is where I do the majority of my vegetable gardening, so I'll show you both places. Okay, so everything is a little messy right now. I have a little project going on here. But right here in this raised bed, I have some basil plants here that are growing and looking fabulous. This is my daughter's little garden. She wanted her own special garden area, so I gave her this grow pot, and she decided to plant a little okra here. She has her own basil, and then this is a white scallop squash. So this is her job to water this and tend to this, and so far she's doing a great job. Here is my garden bed. So in this raised bed, basically we have basil, zinnias, tomatoes, and a row of Alabama red okra here in the back. This is actually growing really nicely, and if you look, let's see, if you look right there, you can see some little buds starting to form that will be blooms and ultimately okra. So those are all growing nicely. I have some basil here, some sage, a little thyme. These are all zinnias that my son planted from seed, so he loves coming out here and checking on these. And we've had a few little tiny blooms so far. They're looking great. And then these are just two leftover tomatoes that I just plopped them in because I had extra tomatoes and I didn't want to let them die, so we just made space for them. So this is a little red cherry, and that's a Brad's atomic grape. I have a cute little lavender plant here my husband got me. And then over here in this bed is peppers and tomatoes. These are all peppers that I just had left over from the seeds that I started. So basically these two raised beds are just all of my leftover vegetable starts that I didn't have room for in my big garden. So I just plugged them in here, but they're all doing great. This is a little poblano pepper that's putting on its first little fruits. This is a ground cherry. Also, look at those cute little lanterns. Here's another one here. So I've never grown ground cherries before, but I've seen multiple YouTube accounts grow them, and they seem like a really fun thing. They have, they're kind of in the same family as a tomatillo, meaning that the fruit grows into this little husk, but instead of a savory flavor, it's a very sweet fruit-like flavor. We actually found some at a store local to us, and the kids loved them. So I decided to grow them, and so far they're doing great, and I can't wait till we get our first ripe one. Okay, so back here behind the ground cherry, we have some tomatoes here. This is a Dr. Weiss's or Dr. Witchy's. I'm not quite sure how you say that. This one is labeled Brandywine, but I can tell you right now that it is not a Brandywine. Brandywines have a leaf that is shaped like a potato leaf, and this does not have that, so I'm not sure what it is, but we do have a little baby. We do have a little baby tomato on there, so hopefully we'll find out soon what this is. This is a Paul Robeson, and this is another Brad's atomic grape. I just love how these little fruits look So pretty, even as tiny little things. Anyway, down in here, just some marigolds and things stuffed among the peppers and tomatoes, but that bed's filling out nicely. That looks pretty good. Now I do have some carrots that are growing in these pots, and these have grown so much. And then this is just a pot of wildflowers that my daughter planted, and there was quite a few sunflowers in there, so the sunflowers are popping up. I can't wait till those get bigger. I do have a pot of garlic here, and I think this garlic may be getting ready to harvest. I've never grown garlic before, but I keep reading that it's ready to harvest once the tips of the leaves start turning brown, and I think we are getting to that point. So I might pull these up soon just to see what is growing underneath. I guess I need to read up on that a little bit more just to make sure. So this little project here, I have 2 pots holding a tarp down, and under that tarp is all the leftover dirt and soil that I emptied out after harvesting my potatoes in grow bags. So my plan is to repurpose that dirt and put it back into some pots and grow some zinnias and sunflowers, some more of them because I really like them. But right now we're in a holding pattern, and I will get to that eventually. Alright, I thought I'd bring you over here to the side of the house to check on Granny Bingham's rose. It had a big flush of blooms, and it's pretty much stopped blooming. I deadheaded it, and it's put out some new growth, but I'm just waiting on it to start blooming again. This Origold rose has been blooming nicely, and then our little miniature rose, which needs to be deadheaded again as well. Those blooms are looking a little spent. All in all, though, I've been really happy with how these flowers have been doing. Over here in this bed, this is where I ripped out some bushes and I planted a whole bunch of dahlias and zinnias and cosmos, and we're getting so close to our first dahlia blooms. So we have a cute little dainty cosmos here. And look at this zinnia, isn't that pretty? Oh, look. Look, it's our first dahlia bloom. It's just barely opening up. Looks great. And some other cute little cosmos. Oh, and let's get a good look at this zinnia over here. That's so nice. I really love those. All in all, this bed is looking pretty good. It's starting to fill out. It was looking pretty sparse there for a while, but hopefully it will just continue to fill out and look better as the season goes on. So around here to the front of the house, oh, look at there. Hello, Mr. Dahlia. Oh, I really like that one. So this year I kind of went dahlia crazy, I guess you could say. I didn't even realize that dahlias were a thing until just about a year or 2 ago. And I found so many dahlia tubers in the stores this spring that I bought a lot of them. So I've literally just been sticking dahlias in and around different parts of the big garden and my landscaping here, and I'm really happy I did it because that dahlia was so pretty. Anyway, so here at the front of my house I have some railing boxes there, which is some petunias and a sweet potato vine. Those make me happy. Those are pretty. Here's some more little zinnias that my son planted. Micah loves his zinnias. And then just some various little potted plants, snake plant and such. And I keep saying I'm going to take this greenhouse down, but I also keep finding seeds to plant. And even though I don't need a greenhouse for its heat capabilities right now because things are hot, it does make nice shelving. So these are some flower seeds that my mom asked me to plant for her. We have some hollyhocks here that are just starting to sprout up. This is coreopsis seeds that have not yet germinated, echinacea, and then Shasta daisy. We have our first little Shasta daisy sprouts. And then these are some little bluebells that Kaylin wanted to try to sprout. I do have some green twisted echinacea here that I've been working on. And I planted a lot of seeds in here, but only 2 of them have come up so far. And this is actually strawberries. I'm attempting to grow strawberries from seed. And so far, things are looking promising. These are some golden berries, or ground cherries. Also, my husband bought some from a store. And I actually just took one of them and squeezed out all the seeds, and I got all of this to sprout and grow. So I've planted some of these in the big garden, and I'm hoping to either give these away or find a place to plant those. It grew way more than I realized it would. Alright guys, I'm back here at our big garden. Excuse me, I got all hot and sweaty. I actually took some turkeys and some baby guineas that we had in a brooder at home and moved them out to a chicken tractor here, so I got pretty hot doing that. But we're out here at my big no-dig garden now. This is a 50 by 50 plot that I started from scratch this year, doing the no-dig method, similar to what I have seen Charles Dowding and Josh Satin do on their channels. So at the beginning of spring, I planted a ton of things, and I have several videos of all the things that I've planted and how I did that. And with my last garden tour, which I shot over Mother's Day, I started to notice some things just weren't looking quite as good as I hoped they would be. And I kept attributing it to like transplant shock and just maybe changes in the weather. But as time went on, I realized that I actually had a pretty big problem on my hands. My peppers especially looked very yellow and just puny. My beans that sprouted that were looking good just very quickly turned pale green, yellow color, and their growth was stunted. They just literally stopped growing. I noticed similar things with a bunch of other plants too. And honestly, I really got discouraged. I kind of stopped shooting video for a little bit. I stopped posting things because I was pretty bummed out about my garden, because I had spent all of this time and a nice little chunk of money, even though I tried to do it as cheaply as possible. When you're doing something this big, it still adds up. But I felt like I had wasted all of this time and money because nothing was growing like I hoped it would and like it should. So all that to say is I ended up doing a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of research to try to figure out what my problems were. And I came to the conclusion that the compost that I used was very deficient in nutrients. Actually, the compost source that I use is the landfill that we have local to us, and they have an analysis report on their website showing the components of the compost and their nutritional analysis. And I was looking that up, and it showed the nitrogen levels being extremely low compared to what normal nitrogen levels in soil are. Also potassium and phosphorus too. Like pretty much everything was very, very low in nutrient density, even though it was very good looking compost. Like to look at it, it looked rich and great. But nutritionally, it was very deficient. So I started applying fertilizer. Initially, I really wanted to go the all organic route when it came to fertilizers and pesticides. I've not used any pesticides, but I did end up using some synthetic fertilizers just because synthetic fertilizers have a very rapid release and get nutrients right to the roots of the plants where they need it most. And so I actually did a combination of both synthetic and organic fertilizers. And I've been doing that pretty consistently over the last 3 going on 4 weeks now. And I've seen a huge, huge, huge improvement in the growth of everything and the color of everything. Things are so much better now. And all that to say, gardening doesn't always go to plan, but a little bit of research really pays off. So let me show you everything. All right, here we go. So things are looking so much better since the last garden tour. It's just beautiful. It really makes me happy. So let me start right here. This is our first row. And on this 16-foot cattle panel trellis, I have mostly cherry tomatoes with just a few slicers on the end. These are all my sweet peppers. And this is a nasturtium. Look at this little nasturtium here. It still is not as full in luscious as it it still is not as full as it could be, but it is much improved compared to what it was. These peppers though, hey buddy, you're making this difficult. Move out the way. These peppers though are so much improved from what they were doing. So these peppers here, these are all my sweet peppers. It's a combination of California Wonders. I have some purple Zulu peppers. Oh, what are the other ones? I forgot. This is one thing I'll do different this year. These little tags, everything I wrote on there has faded off, so they're pretty much worthless. So basically, since all of my little tags have worn off, I have pretty much forgotten what each pepper is. But I do know I have California Wonders, Zulus, I have some Shishitos. This is actually a pepper. This one is actually a pepper that I bought from the store. It's called a Mad Hatter pepper. And it grows these, can you see that? It grows these funky shaped little peppers. That's a tiny one, but it'll get much bigger. And those are the rest of the sweet peppers. And then on this cattle panel trellis are all my cherry tomatoes. So this is just a little basic red cherry tomato. These tomatoes are my Heather's Mystery tomatoes from my, oh Randy, you scared me. Get out of there. So Heather's Mystery tomatoes from my friend Heather. She says those are her favorite cherry tomatoes, but she won't tell me the name of them, so I have to wait till they ripen to figure out what they are. These are Brad's Atomic Grape, and they are looking beautiful. I love the striping on those. I have some more Brad's Atomic Grape right here. And these guys, these are blueberries from Wild Boar Farms. Blueberry cherry tomatoes. Those are looking nice. There we go. Those look so good. So this is a Brandywine. It doesn't have any tomatoes yet, but it does have some blooms. I'm pretty sure this is a Better Boy. There we go. There's some fruit hiding down there. And a Cherokee Purple. Yep, here's my Cherokee Purple here. And then on down this row, I have a little borage plant that I stuck in here. This is all glass gem corn. This bed used to have beets and cabbage and broccoli in it that just never grew. So I tore all those out and I planted some of those goldenberry seedlings that you saw in my greenhouse at home. I planted those out just 2 or 3 days ago and they're looking a little wilty now, but I think they'll bounce back soon. All right, so down from the goldenberries, I have my onions here. They really have not grown well, and I think that is to due to my soil conditions. So we'll see how these turn out. They're not quite ready to harvest yet, but I think I'm going to plant another round of these in the fall. Over here on this next row, I have some gladiolas, and down this side of the bed is a mixture of dahlias and some purple coneflowers. And then on the trellis, I have all of my paste tomatoes. So on this side of the trellis here, I have, these are all Hungarian heart, 5 Hungarian hearts, and then towards that end are Amish paste. And this tomato, actually, I'm not sure what happened when I was pruning it. I think maybe a child or an animal did it. But this tomato plant actually got topped, so it has stopped growing. And I was so faithful about pruning the suckers that there's no suckers left to continue on growing. So I just left it here. These fruits will, these tomatoes will continue to ripen, but the plant itself won't grow anymore. But I think that's actually providential because this little guy here is a volunteer. I did not plant that. I think it's some type of cucumber maybe. But it is starting to vine up this trellis here. So I'm just gonna let that go and fill in this space since this tomato is not gonna get any bigger than this. So, oh, look at that. I just noticed that little gladiola is gonna be blooming soon. Yes. All right, so on down the line, more paste tomatoes. And look at this guy. Like, this guy is pretty stinking huge. And like, he's beautiful. I cannot wait to see these ripen. I've been so happy with how things are looking now once I figured out the soil issues. This one has a nice big cluster on it as well. And so forth and so on. This is a beautiful borage here, and it puts out these purple blue flowers. I don't know if you can see that. These little blue flowers, they're tiny, but they attract bees like crazy. There's nothing on them right now, but most of the time I come out here, this plant, all the blooms are covered in bees. Had to take a little break. The UPS man drove up with a package. All right, so over here on this trellis, this is bamboo with just some trellis netting. These are all my cucamelons, and they are growing wild. They're going crazy. I had no idea they would get quite this crazy. They're just covering everything. Here we go. They make these cute little watermelon striped cucumbers, basically. They're not exactly in the cucumber family, and they're not in the watermelon family. They're actually a whole family all of their own, but they taste like cucumbers mostly, with a little citrus hint at the end. My kids love coming out here and picking every ripe one they can find. We have another ground cherry plant here. And then this row of tomatoes are all my slicers, with hot peppers here on this end. I do really like this basil plant. It's a combination, I'm not sure if it's just a crazy hybrid, but it's like a purple opal, but it's also green. It's like variegated green and purple. I really like that. Oh, now I do see a problem here. This is blossom end rot, which can be caused by a calcium deficiency, usually from sporadic watering, like either too heavy or too light, or a combination of the both. So these won't be any good. I'll have to pick those off. But from everything I've read, that's usually a self-limiting issue, and the rest of the fruit on the plant typically goes on to produce well. So I'll have to keep an eye on that. It's a beautiful cluster there. I'm really excited about these tomatoes. These are Black Beauty tomatoes, again from Wild Boar Farms. This plant is loaded with them, but they turn this deep, deep purple, almost black color in the sun. And I just think that's so cool. You can't buy that in a grocery store anywhere around here. My little marigolds of happiness stuck all through the tomatoes. Here's some more. Here's some more Black Beauties. Let's see. This is Dr. Witchy's, or Dr. Weish's. Oh, we got some splitting going on there. This one though, this one is beautiful. This is also a Dr. Witchy's. He's big. He looks great. Here we have some Paul Robeson that are getting close. Nothing's quite ripe yet, but we're getting close. This is another Black Beauty here. And I think this is Paul Robeson as well. And this right here, this is a large barred boar, again from Wild Boar Farms. Hey, little marigolds. And let me show you some of these peppers I have here on this end. I'm sorry I'm breathing heavy. It's so stinking hot out here today. Here's some jalapenos. I can actually probably go ahead and pick some of these soon. Quite a few jalapenos on that plant. This is a purchase plant. All of these others I started from seeds. They're not quite to the point of producing yet, but they're just now starting to put on flowers. This variegated pepper here, this is a fish pepper. It also produces variegated pepper fruits on it, not just the leaves. Another fish pepper. I think this is a shishito. Again, I don't remember. Most of my tags have faded in the sun. I do know that this is an Alma paprika pepper. Some little blooms there, so we should have some Alma paprika pepper soon. And this is the best looking nasturtium I have. This is a Alaska mix nasturtium. That is what a nasturtium is supposed to look like. All my other ones really have not thrived, but that one is doing well. Okay, next row here are squashes. This is a combination of yellow patty pan squash and then black zucchini down here on the end. Those are really looking good. This little plant has been a struggler, but he's coming along. These are some white marigolds, some yellow marigolds, just different varieties that I've plugged in for some color. And on this trellis here, finally, my cucumbers are starting to take off. I just picked my first cucumber the other day, and we have this little guy coming on. He looks great. All right, I have another ground cherry plant here. And then this row, this is where all my potatoes used to be. And I actually have a video of me harvesting those potatoes, and honestly, it was pretty disappointing. Not nearly as many as I had hoped for. But I flipped this bed, added some fertilizer to it, and I planted peanuts just to see how those would grow. I came over here in the shade to talk to you because it is so stinging hot today. Anyway, so I planted peanuts just as an experiment, as a learning opportunity, really. So my goal in the future is to learn enough about growing food so that I can become more sustainable and actually grow a significant portion of our family's food that will last us all year long. I'm not to that point yet, but I'm hoping to get there. Oh, sweat running all down my face. But back to the peanuts. The peanuts are really just a learning experiment for me. I've never grown peanuts before, and I've never actually seen a peanut plant in real life, but after doing some research, I realized we had just enough time left in our long growing season to hopefully get a harvest if everything I read holds true. So we'll see how that goes. I thought it'd be fun. All right, back to the task at hand. This row right here is tall plants on the side. Those are all sunflowers. And then I have a row of okra coming down here, and basically the same thing here. Okra with sunflowers on the other end. This side is all Alabama red okra, and then this side is a combination of heavy hitter okra from Baker Creek Seeds with Clemson spineless okra down here towards the end. Here's the back side of that cucumber trellis that I showed you earlier. These cucumbers were stunted for the longest time, and they're just finally taken off. Here's a few little dahlias and more marigolds down here. Now on this trellis, this is a second arched trellis, I had Kajari melons planted here. And here's one Kajari melon, and it's doing well. It's finally starting to spring forth. But I had a Kajari melon here and it died. So my cousin sent me some trombones, I can't say it right, tromboncino squash. So I planted those here. And they just sprouted. Like, this guy was not here yesterday. He literally just sprouted overnight. Same thing on this side. Kajari melon looking all right. This one died, and I got a little tromboncino squash. My cousin Tess from Maryland sent me those seeds, and I've never grown those before either, like many things in this garden. But they grow like big, like 3 foot long, 2 foot, 3 foot long squash that I'm hoping will cover this arched trellis and just hang down and look really majestic. So we'll see how that turns out. Okay, back here beyond the Kajari melon, I have a big row of bush beans. These are all Blue Lake variety bush beans, and they really just started putting out beans the last week. I've already harvested about 1.5 gallons of bush beans. This trellis here, I think I skipped over it. This trellis here is Chinese red noodle beans, and they are starting to run up, getting high here. These beans were stunted for the longest time as well, and I'm so happy to see them climbing the top. Good job, little beans. And then on this row over here is another big cluster of bush beans. I have, this is all my colorful beans. I have dragon tongue bush beans here. Here is a variety called Royal Burgundy. Here's a little bean. They put off these deep, well, that one's almost greenish, but these deep burgundy beans. Let me see if I can find you another one. Here we go. They put off these deep, beautiful burgundy beans. I thought those were cool looking. I should pick those. Here is there is a Cherokee wax bean, which is the yellow bean. And then down the end here, I have green jade beans. This trellis here is some more cucumbers that they've been slower than the other ones, but they're just now starting to run. These are muncher cucumbers. There's a little cosmos that looks kind of half dead. Here's a zinnia that's just now starting to bloom soon. And that's the back end of the okra and sunflowers that I showed you earlier. I just noticed this. Look at this sunflower. We're gonna have blooms soon. Yes. All right, back here on this row, this is silver queen corn. And then the row beside it is peaches and cream corn. So I planted these about 2 to 3 weeks apart, kind of in an effort to succession sow, but also so that they don't cross-pollinate. Because I keep reading various information about if you grow 2 varieties of corn near each other, they can cross-pollinate, therefore ruining the texture and the flavor of the existing corn. So I purposely planted these about 3 weeks apart in an attempt to try to avoid that. I'm not quite sure how important that actually is, but we're gonna figure it out. Like I said, this is all a learning opportunity for me. But this corn is putting out a little bloom. That is a corn bloom. So on down through the rows of corn, we have some more squash on this end. Oh, this poor pitiful cosmos, I think it's dead. We're gonna have to replant some more flowers in these spots. Good thing I started a bunch of zinnias and cosmos at home to replace these with. This down here is yellow crookneck squash. There's a little squash baby in there. Hey, I need to pick those. Those look good. And then down here we have some white scallop squash. Let me see if I can find one. Here we go. Here's a white scallop squash, the other variety I'm growing. Here on this row are sweet potatoes that have really taken off and starting to run. Those are looking good. And, oh, you see that little butterfly? Pretty sure that's a pest. We'll have to watch him. Okay, so these are sweet potatoes, and down between the sweet potatoes and the corn on the end, this is spaghetti squash. I actually planted, it's hard to see right now, I planted some sunflowers in amongst the spaghetti squash, hoping the sunflowers would get nice and tall and the spaghetti squash would ramble around beneath them. Mr. Bug, you need to get out of my garden. Thank you. But these spaghetti squash have really taken off and have put on a ton of fruit. There's another big one. There we go. It's always fun pulling these leaves back to find a big old squash underneath. Okay, then last but not least on this final row are indeed more sunflowers and all of the watermelons. I just love looking at the garden from this angle over here. Everything looks so lush and green. Alright, so here are all the watermelons, and again, my labeling system needs to be revamped because things faded and got covered up, and I can't remember what is what. What is this one? This is, Charleston Gray, that's right. So these two are Charleston Gray watermelons. Big sunflower, I'm pretty sure these are Georgia rattlesnakes if my memory is correct. This smaller one here, this is a sugar baby. Another sugar baby. And this one I'm excited about. This is called Moon and Stars. It has this beautiful variegated foliage on it with these little yellow speckles so it look like stars. Another Moon and Stars. This is a passion melon, which I think is very similar to a cantaloupe. This poor little pitiful guy. One little pitiful cantaloupe that never did anything. I'm not sure why he's struggling. He was planted at the exact same time as this guy. So this is a cantaloupe, and last on the end we have a crimson sweet watermelon. Alright guys, that's it. That is the extent of the garden tour this time. If you went back and looked at the May garden tour, you would see just how much everything has changed. Again, I ran into a big roadblock with my soil nutrients, and I'm so glad that fertilizer was the key, at least in this situation. So one of my goals is to really learn more about organic fertilizers using bone meal and blood meal and the different amendments like that to fertilize my soil. I'm just starting the path of the no-dig garden, and I have a lot to learn still. I know synthetic fertilizers are not generally recommended in the no-dig approach, but I just wanted my plants to live and I wanted to be successful. So that's what I went with. I'm going to try to slowly transition over to more organic means, but this is what we have right now. And like I said, it's all a learning process for me. And I know I'm not doing everything right, but I'm trying to learn as I go. But I've been super happy with the results I've had so far. Those tomatoes, like, I'm really excited about those tomatoes. I shared one video in the past about how I'm growing them the way that Jessica Sowards grows them from Roots and Refuge. She seems to have great success, so I wanted to try her methods out. And so far, it's looking really promising. So I've always attempted to grow at least some vegetables, even if it was just a pot on my balcony for, I can't count how many years, but last year was my first large-scale garden, and this year, this method, and I honestly didn't realize how happy gardening would make me. Like, this is a hobby I really enjoy. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching this, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.